Hello and welcome to Class Time CSEC Math. I am Denise Bailey.
And I am Shadeen Cassie. Yesterday we've looked at problem solving in geometry and trigonometry. Today we will be continuing with the same topic.
Yes, and since exams are around the corner, we are going to divulge some secrets to mastering geometry and trigonometry multiple choice questions on your upcoming math paper.
So you will want to pay close attention to this session. Let's begin.
The objective is to solve multiple choice questions involving geometry and trigonometry.
But before we go into finer details of what we'll be doing today, let's look at some tips for answering multiple choice items. The first tip is read the entire question carefully.
Very important. You will need to get all the information that you need in order to answer the question. Reread the question and focus on what the question is asking.
And then you need to highlight all relevant information needed to answer the question.
That is good, Cassie.
Eliminate wrong answers. And then decide on your plan. So if you notice, we are actually going through some of the same attempts for problem solving.
That is true.
Right.
Read and understand. You formulate a plan.
Yes.
Then you action the plan. Then you check. Okay.
Apply your strategy, which would be the same as actioning the plan.
Yes, yes.
And then you check your work. And most importantly, you need to indicate your answer by shading with the appropriate pencil.
Yes, at the appropriate number, as indicated on the paper.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Right.
So a breakdown of the topics that's covered under the unit that is labeled geometry and trigonometry. It states that students should be able to, and these are the objectives that we'll be clarifying today, construct lines, angles, and polygons using appropriate geometrical instruments.
We are also going to be describing a transformation given an object and its image. We are going to be using trigonometric ratios in the solution of right-angled triangles.
Okay.
And represent relevant position of 2 points given the bearing of 1 point with respect to the other. Not last, solve practical problems involving heights and distances in three-dimensional situations.
We are to note, however, Shadeen, that these are just a few of the objectives that are actually covered under the unit that's titled Geometry and Trigonometry. So these are just a few of the objectives that we are covering.
In addition to that, these objectives were taken directly from the CSEC curriculum.
Yes.
So they are going to be tested somewhat.
Thank you very much for that reminder. So we go to our question one. A boat was traveling on a bearing of 270 degrees. And the question is, what direction was it traveling? It's a multiple choice.
All right, it's a multiple choice, and looking at it, I see bearing jumping out at me. So I see bearing, so we're trying to highlight the important information, and I also see 270 degrees.
Yes,
so
yes.
After reading the question, before even going into what a solution is, I look at the suggested solutions that are there to see what I'm required to do.
Okay.
Right. So in multiple choice questions, not all the time we are required to go through the full length of working out.
That's
right.
true.
So it depends on what our solution is requiring of us.
Okay.
So after reading the question, I look at my solutions to see. So my solutions are saying west, east, north, and south.
Yes.
What do I do with that? I have these solutions. I have bearing. I have
Yes.
270 degrees.
Well, I would have to have some considerations. When I talk about bearings and I'm talking about the direction, then the solution set does not help me much.
Right.
So I'd have to go back to what are some considerations?
All right. So I might want to think of a plan.
Okay.
And thinking of a plan, then it gives me direction that
Okay,
came out. So
yes.
I would want to make a representation of 270 degrees.
Okay, okay. So a representation of 270 degrees.
Requires the cardinal points
Yes.
or a representation
Yes.
of it. And then, or the compass. And then we see where 270.
Question. 270 degrees. We have the direction. If we are reading the compass, using the cardinal points, thinking about bearing, does it matter the direction in which we go in order to come up with our solution?
Right. So in bearing,
Okay.
or bearings, the direction is very important. So if I take an anti-clockwise direction or a counterclockwise direction, then that will be an incorrect solution.
That would mean I go from north to west.
Right,
Oh.
because bearings is measured in a clockwise direction.
Okay.
So that is important. So looking at it, measuring in a clockwise direction, where will 270 degrees fall?
Well, what I know is that in the first I have 90 degrees.
First quarter?
First quarter,
Yes.
there's 90 degrees. When I go down to the second quarter, I am going to have 180 degrees. So therefore, the 270 degrees, I believe, would come somewhere around on the left-hand side of the
compass, exactly where west lies.
Exactly where west lies. And that is what is illustrated there for us. The 90, another 90 degrees added to another 90 degree, 370 degrees from north.
Yes.
270 degrees from north.
In a clockwise direction.
Thank you. So that would mean that our answer, west.
A, west.
Thank you.
Yes. So 270 degrees will, in what direction is this traveling? Western direction.
Thank you. So let's go. Oh, question 2.
Right. So this time, looking at the question, I'm not required to do a diagram, right?
No, it's given.
But
it is given.
I can fit my information on the diagram if needs be. So let's read the question carefully.
Yes.
In the diagram, AB and CD are parallel, right? So you are showing them both parallel lines, right?
Yes.
Which of the following best describes the relation between X and Y?
Yes. That relationship is now formed because line AB and CD has been intersected by
a transversal.
Okay.
Yes, and then we see some angle properties coming out.
Okay.
Now, do not be distracted by our solutions being represented in algebraic form, right? Do not. We are still focusing on trigonometry and geometry.
Okay, thank you.
Now, let's examine the diagram carefully. We would have identified the parallel lines. Go ahead and show them.
AB, CD,
Right.
parallel lines.
And it is bisected by a transversal, or intersected rather, by a transversal. And we can see the angles
X and Y
being formed there. Now, for us, or what we should be thinking about is the list of properties that arise when we think about angles formed by intersecting lines. And thinking about that, then we will see a relationship coming out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there are some that we can eliminate, but jumping to the solution, we will know that X and Y are equal because they are alternate angles.
Yes.
Some persons refer to them as being Z angles, and it, depending on the direction or the orientation of the diagram, it could be the N angles.
Yes.
Right? So because alternate angles are equal, let's examine our solution to
Set.
see which will say that x is equal to y.
And when I look at it, B jumps out at me because
Right.
it explicitly states that x is equal to y. And so the answer would therefore be B, x is equal to y.
Correct.
Okay, not bad, multiple choice. So here we have another question. The image of a point P, -2, 3, under a translation 3, 4 is, and we have our solution set that's given.
No, you have read the question carefully. What are the important information that we need to get from the question?
When I look at this, I see the coordinates for point P.
That's
And
given.
yes, that is given. And I see the vector under which the translation has taken place.
Right.
So I'm to use that information now to help me to identify what the new coordinates would be under that translation.
Right. So
Okay.
we would have been given the image.
Yes, P.
We are to find the image given the object.
Okay.
Right. So we are to find the image given the object. Now, what do we do? And these are information that we need to try and remember with adequate practice. Then we should be able to remember these key information.
Good.
Now, given the object
Yes.
and the vector, in order
Yes.
to find the image, then we do an addition right there.
Yes.
Right. So go ahead and walk them through.
Okay.
adding.
So looking at the object, we got the coordinate, and we have rewritten the coordinate as a vector in order for us to have the addition of the two vectors.
to carry out the operation.
In order to carry out
Yeah.
the operation, which takes us clearly, when we would have done our addition, it's clearly stated there. My answer would be D.
Because
My
it must be written as a point and not as a vector.
not as a vector.
Yes.
So even though we would have used the vector to do that operation, the addition that is here, it's requiring us to have a coordinate. And for us, the answer would be D.
One of the things that we need to remember too, Denise, is that when we are doing multiple choice question, unfortunately, we are not allowed to use a calculator.
That's
So,
true.
viewers, students, please remember your operation on integer.
Yes.
So that's why when we add -2
Added
and
2, 3,
we
yes, we
positive
get 1.
1.
Yes. Thanks for that reminder. And even though we are going through the multiple choice questions in a little bit more detail than you would actually be going through as you do the exams, remember that you have a specific time that is allotted for completing the multiple choice. So we have to budget our time wisely in order to comfortably complete all the items that are there.
On an average, it is suggested that one question will take a minute and a half to somewhere there about, but there are questions that might take you a few more minutes than the minute and a half that's averaged, and then there are some questions that by just reading and looking at it,
Exactly.
you'll take less than a minute to solve, so the
Exactly.
time will compensate for each other.
Awesome.
Right there.
Awesome. And one of the tips that I would like to interject here is that if we recognize that we are spending too much time on an item that we have, are we going to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes in order to battle that one out?
No.
No.
What we should do is just put a little mark there to highlight it to say that you would have
Incomplete.
Yes,
Yes.
and then you continue and come back to that question.
Yes, and what happens is this: there are times then that other questions that would have come later down in the multiple choice will help you to better understand and clarify a question that you would have had to walk away from. So don't get confused
Flustered.
and don't get flustered. Just take your time and go through.
Move along.
Okay.
Right.
So let us go. Here we have question 4. In the right angle triangle above, tan theta is, and this is calling us to examine a diagram that has already been given to us.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So they would have given us a diagram, and we are to identify what operation we are to carry out in order to get a value for tan theta. But it did not ask us for a value for tan theta. It did not say what degrees or whatever. So what do we need to do?
So we need to examine the triangle. We have the angle of focus. That's the angle of focus. We also have to identify the type of triangle that is there, and it's indicated by the square corner that is there. So we have tan theta, and we have, because this is the angle of focus, opposite that angle, we can identify opposite. We can identify the hypotenuse simply because it is a right angle triangle.
It's opposite to the right
angle. And we also are able to identify the adjacent
side.
Now, all we have to do is to review the trig ratios that we have. We know them. We know them all.
Some persons are able to sing them.
Yes.
But just make a quick representation of what each ratio represents, right, in order to eliminate your possibility of making a mistake.
Yes.
And move with that.
Okay.
So tan theta would be equal to the opposite side divided by the adjacent side.
So the opposite and the adjacent would be the cos. Opposite and adjacent would be tan. So the opposite is 5 and adjacent would be 12. And so therefore, looking at, after we have looked through this question, we see that it is 5 upon 12.
Yes.
Not bad.
Not
we
bad.
can do this. We can do this. We can do this. Yes. Our fifth question. We have a representation here, a diagram, and we want to find out how many triangles congruent to ADE would be needed to cover rectangle ABCD entirely. I'm thinking of area, total coverage.
Right.
Okay, congruent, same sized triangle. Yes?
Yes, we could use the area formula, which will take a little bit more working out. And if you're a visual person, you can actually do replicas of the triangle
Which
that
is
given,
right.
which will help you to move a little bit faster.
Okay, so the first triangle there, representation, and of course, that is a congruent triangle. This is a third congruent triangle to the first, fourth, fifth, and the sixth. So when they say how many would be needed to totally cover rectangle ABCD entirely, I'm seeing 6 rectangles that are congruent to the first, ADE.
Right. So if it doesn't mean that if you had gone ahead to find the area, you would have gotten the incorrect answer.
Not at all.
No, but it would have taken a little more time.
Yes. And this is what I enjoy. There are many solution paths. It's what you're more comfortable with, you're most comfortable with.
Yes.
And which allows, with multiple choice, you don't need to be showing working. You just need to be efficient in finding your answer.
Yes.
Okay. So 6, that's our answer.
Question 6. A boy stands, and this question is one of those questions that will take you a little bit more than a minute and a half.
Yes.
Right? Because you have to read, interpret, and then come up with a plan.
Yes.
A boy stands 12 meters from the foot of a building and observes the angle of elevation of the top of the building. The height of the building is approximately... So there is a visual representation of the information that is given. What you need to do now is to examine the diagram carefully and try to decipher
which of the answers would be most applicable, in finding the height. So we are looking at the height, we have the height of the young man, which is 1.6 meters, represented here.
Right.
Okay, so how do we find the height as represented by this triangle with a right angle triangle with a 40-degree angle
of elevation? All right, so if we were to, all right, the height of the boy is, it gives a rectangle, right?
Yes.
So where the boy is that length or that distance is equal to, highlight there, this side.
Okay, okay, yes.
Right, so right away we would have
known the height from here, from the base to the height of the boy, reflecting here would be 1.6 meters.
So what we need to find now is the distance there that is represented by the angle of elevation.
Okay.
Right? And it goes back to our right angle or trig ratios for the right angle triangles. Using that, we can identify the opposite, the adjacent, and the hypotenuse, right? And using that information, given the angle or the angle that is being identified, then we can say that we would use opposite divided by the adjacent, because 12 meters there would also be equal to
12 meters
the line of sight. Yes.
Okay. So therefore, when by looking at all of that now, we recognize that we're using tan. The height here, that is what we're trying to find. And so the boy's height added to the angle of elevation represented by the trig ratio that you have identified would give us 1.6 added to 12 tan 40 as the height of the building.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. But what I see that is required is that we need to pay attention to the information that is given, read all of the question in order to fully be able to answer the question.
Right.
Okay. So here we have another.
In a triangle ABC, angle A equals x degrees and angle B equals 2x degrees. What is the size of angle C? So in a triangle, what do you know about a triangle? What does a triangle looks like? And so we need to do a quick sketch. You are allowed to do that, right?
Yes, yes, it's your paper.
Yes. You do a quick sketch of the triangle. If you're having problems coming up with that, put the information that you're given inside the triangle and what is it that you are required to find.
Yes, we understand that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle would be 180. So what this is saying to me is that angle C added to angle B, which is 2x degrees, added to angle A, which is x degree, all of that, the sum would be 180. And I would have had two pieces of information to be used in order to solve the problem.
So we could do our substitution, right? Add those and then transpose in order to find the value of angle C.
What is important to note for me here, Shadeen, is how the answer, the solution sets are represented. If you look at the solution set, you would recognize that there is no one definite angle. You have a combination of how it is the answer could be represented.
Or an expression.
Right.
So we could go ahead and eliminate some of the options that are there. We are not given enough information to select a 45 degree or a 60 degree. So what we could go ahead and do is to eliminate 45 and 60, and then we will be left with these two options, C and D, and based on working out, we will see that C would have been the correct answer.
Okay, let's stick a pin right here. Class time continues with more after this break.
Welcome back to Class Time CSEC Math. We've been going through some geometry and trigonometry multiple choice question. Let's continue.
And we continue on question 8. Good. Here we have a diagram. Pay attention to the information on the diagram. And the diagram above, not drawn to scale, shows that the angle of depression of a point X from Z is 30 degrees. If X is 10 meters from Y, the height of YX in meters is, that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful.
Yes,
Right.
but it's represented there on the diagram for us.
It is represented there, but for some persons, not seeing the person, because we are talking about angle of depression, or not
Yes.
seeing a person being represented,
Yes.
that might be, what are they talking about?
Exactly.
Where is this angle? But the angle is there, highlighted.
Represented there,
it's represented
30 degrees.
there,
Yes.
and we need to note that it's not drawn to scale. It means, therefore, that you cannot go ahead and just take out your protractor and measure to find whatever information. No measurement at all.
Calculations.
So it is based on
Okay.
calculations. Now, we are familiar with angle of depression. They say angle of elevation and depression. In this case, we are focusing on depression. So we can go ahead and examine our diagram and highlight some information that we
Okay.
would have known from previous lessons with depression and fit that in there.
Okay.
Now, some information is given and we could complete the figure. We could
Okay.
have gone that route, but there are multiple solution pathway.
Okay.
So if this angle here
30 degrees.
is 30 degrees, then we can see alternate angles being formed. So alternate angles, I remember a question
we did that
before,
question before, yes.
are equal.
Yes.
So if this is 30, we can,
Angle at X.
the angle at X right here will also be 30 degrees. So there is another piece of information that we would have garnered from the question. Now, what is it that we are required to find? We are to find the height
Yes.
of YZ. So we need to find this side. There is also this symbol right here, which tells us that we are working with a right angle triangle.
Good.
And we are already familiar with our trig ratios. So
Yes.
what we need to go ahead and do is to insert what we know about right angle triangles. So we can identify the hypotenuse right here.
That's correct.
We can also, if this angle is 30 degrees and this is the identified angle that we are working with, we can say that over this side would be the opposite side.
Exactly.
And XY, 10 meters,
meters.
would be the adjacent side.
And we are required to find the opposite side.
We are required to find the opposite.
30 degrees at X.
Right.
Okay.
So we have 30 degrees. We need to find here, and we also know the length of the adjacent side. So we
Awesome.
do have enough information to use opposite divided by adjacent, and the ratio that deals with that aspect of it would be a tan ratio.
Okay, so that's so by looking at it, no other computation or so we would actually need, because it would be the
Right.
tan ratio based on the answers that are
solution-
given,
yes,
the solution set
that are-
that's given right there.
We can eliminate A, C, and D. But if you don't want to do that, it's okay to do your working out as you have there on the board and come up with your...
And sometimes it's not that we're not okay. The chances are persons might not have seen the information because you have exam jitters and all of that. So sometimes we're not making the connections as quickly because sometimes we get under pressure. That is okay.
That's okay.
That is okay. Do your calculations just the same and take it from there. You
Right.
have time, just use the time efficiently in order to complete your multiple choice questions.
Good.
Okay, so the answer that we would have seen, of course, it's B, 10 tan 30 degrees.
Yes.
Okay, good.
question 9. We are given a diagram and it says in the figure, the line CD is the image of AB after, and they give us a list of
Yes, translations.
transformation that we are
Yes.
to select, which is correct. Now it's gonna be, well, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's gonna be time consuming to actually go through and list all the information that you know about rotation, enlargement, translation, and reflection.
Yes.
Right, but even though it's time consuming, there are certain checks that you are going to be making in order to help you to select a correct answer.
Okay.
So what we will do is to examine our responses that are given and eliminate.
Okay, based on the diagram that is represented here.
Right.
So when I look at the diagram, compare the information I get to, and then move forward. Okay. Is this a rotation? If it's a rotation, what would be some points to consider?
Well, the orientation will change, right? And we don't see that, so we can eliminate, right?
The orientation changes. Yes.
So it would be in another direction or something like that. And then for the enlargement, a negative one means that it will get a little bit smaller.
That's right.
Right? On a different side of the graph.
Yes, yes. If it were a translation by vector, we could go and we could use the vector
movements to see where it will take us. And
CD,
then
yes, would not be in line with the vector that is there.
A negative, we are going in a different direction.
Yes.
And for a reflection now, we need to examine to see whether or not the object and the image are equal distance away from
a mirror line, and identify the mirror line. Okay.
And because in this response it suggests that through the y-axis we could examine to see if they are equal distance from the y-axis.
Okay. And when we go ahead and do that, because CD is the image of AB, then of course C is 2 units away from the mirror line.
Yes.
And A is 2 units away from the mirror line in the opposite direction or across the mirror line, which is the y-axis.
Right.
Okay, so that would be equidistance apart.
And we could try it for D as well. And D would have been 5 units from the mirror line, and B would have been the same 5 units from the mirror line. Does the orientation changes?
Okay.
You know, so we'd examine those and see what the solution would be.
Based on what we have looked at, all of what we would have looked at, I'm seeing that D, of course, would have been, because we would have gone through identifying, speaking about the different transformations. And of course, we see that what we have there is a reflection in the y-axis, which the answer would have been D.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we can go. We are okay with that. And so we come to question 10. Now, because it is multiple choice, remember that it is a snippet or a compilation of the topics that we would have been covering across geometry and transformation. And so you would see that there are
geometry and trigonometry.
Trigonometry, thank you very much. Yes, geometry and trigonometry. And so you would see different topics coming out at you. And that is why it is important for us to pay attention when the topics are being done, when whatever it is we don't understand, you are to review it. Don't take it for granted that because it is multiple choice, you can just pick an answer that may not work in your favor. Yes.
Okay, let's read question 10. We are given another diagram, yes, and in the figure above, ABC is a triangle in which AD is equal to BD, which is also equal to CD. The angle ABC is, and the angle that we need to find, we must try and identify that angle
Okay.
on the diagram.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
before, yeah. So there are a few questions that you need to ask yourself while you are working through this question. Some of these are, how many triangles are in the diagram? Denise,
There are 3 triangles in the
there are
diagram.
3 triangles in the diagram. One here, and the entire diagram.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
What type of triangles are shown?
I am seeing the 2 inside triangles. The 2 inside triangles are right angle triangles. Triangle ABD and triangle.
They are isosceles triangles. These 2 sides here are equal, so
Okay.
they did not
Yes.
insert the right
square
angle.
corner.
Yes,
That is
to
true.
show.
That is true. Please
Right.
forgive me. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So we can see 2 isosceles triangles, and then this one, we are not given any length, so it could be scaling.
Either of, yes.
Right.
Yes.
We
What we
might
do
see
know is those lengths
right
are
angles
equal.
coming out later, depending on the size of the angles
That's
that we come up with.
We can use the information that we have in order to make fill in some additional information. So this is what we have, yes.
One of the things that we need to know, the properties of triangles.
That's right.
Each triangle, right?
Yes,
each triangle or type of triangle have a unique property. That's why they're given the names.
Yes.
If these 2 sides are equal, then we can conclude that the base angles
would be equal.
So you need to turn the triangle in your mind, or you can turn your paper if you want to feel more comfortable. Then the base angles would be equal.
That's correct.
So if this angle here at C
is 50,
then the angle CBD would also be equal to 50.
Okay, yes.
Right, and the sum of the angles in a triangle is
180
180.
Yes.
So if we have 50 and another 50, then
100.
Here would be 80. Angles on a straight line, if right here is 80, then the adjacent, would be 100 degrees. Now, if we know that this angle here is 100 degrees, then, yes, it's quite a bit of going through. Then, if one angle, we can identify that these 2 sides are equal.
Yes.
So, the base angles would be equal. So, it's 100 from 180 divided by 2.
Okay.
So, that would give us a 40 degree here at DAB.
Good.
And a 40 degree at ABD.
Okay.
So we would have gotten these 2 angles. This one would be 40, this one would be 50, and we are asked to find angle ABC.
Okay, angle ABC. And looking, after we would have done all of that, looking through the angle, looking through the triangle, we can identify that angle ABC is a composition of 2 angles, right?
Right. So it is important that we note or identify it's a combination of 2, because 40 is listed as a possible answer and 50 is also listed. But are those the answers?
No.
No. So because it is a combination, then what we need to do is to add both angles right there in order to get the size of angle ABC.
And I'm looking also at, if I should look at triangle ABC, I see based on our conversation that the angle formed at C is 50, the angle formed at A is 40, and so that would give me
50 added to 40
is 90, and the sum of the interior angles would be 180. And so I could take it from that perspective just the same.
Like that.
Yes. And so after we've gone through all of that, our answer, the angle ABC is 90 degrees.
Meaning, therefore, that triangle ABC is a right angle triangle.
Let's continue. So here we have another question. It's a little different from what we would have done before. The diagram below is of a construction with center A and arc BC is shown. With center B and the same radius, the arc PCQ is drawn.
All right, so some persons might think that it is rather impossible to be testing construction on a multiple choice paper.
True.
But this question will prove that it is not impossible at all. So while some persons take it for granted and just go ahead and randomly swing arcs and measure and come up with the angle that they are required to construct, here we are given a diagram which we are required to examine it carefully.
In light of the information that is above.
In light of the information that's given, and say what angle is being constructed right here.
Okay.
Now, highlighting the important information.
Thank you.
We are given a center. We are also told that an arc BC is drawn, and with the center, same radius.
Exactly.
And we can see 2 radii in the diagram, right? And some persons take it for granted, or they might not have been informed somewhere along the line that when we swing an arc is a part of the circumference of a circle.
Yes.
So it's really that we were going to draw a circle, but we did the arc of the circle. That's why we are getting radius or 2 radii coming out in the question, because what does a radius have to do with construction? I was never told that before, right?
Yes, yes.
But that would have been the intention. Now, equal a radius will suggest that we are equal distance from the center of the circle, or the center. They didn't say circle, but the point there represents the center of a circle. And with that information, both sides, both radii being equal, then we can conclude that we are actually drawing or constructing a 60-degree angle.
And what is important for us to note is that in order for us to have all this information, we would have had to be actively constructing angles, polygons, whatever it is, using the instruments in order to do the construction.
Right.
It is upon doing those
Practice.
Thank you. Coming back to that, it's upon doing those that we are able to make the generalization.
Yes.
Yes.
Most
so this is one
definitely.
of the questions that would not really take a lot of time still, you know.
Shouldn't.
Should not. Okay. So here we are now at question 12. Yes. A ship sailed 80 kilometers due. 8 kilometers due east from A to B. It then sailed 6 kilometers due north to C. Which diagram below best represents the path of the ship?
All right, so sailed, due, from, those words are telling me that we are looking at a bearings question.
And I'm seeing the card north.
And
I'm
north,
seeing
right.
east.
Most importantly, the north.
The north,
right.
yes.
So we are looking at a bearings question, but this time our solution is represented in diagram format.
Yes.
Right? Knowing the information that you should have when dealing with bearings, then we can go ahead and examine the solutions, examine and eliminate as we move along. Right? So a ship sailed 8 kilometers due east.
Yes.
East would be 90 degrees of from north.
From north, yes.
Right? So we know that our north line points in an upward direction.
Yes, as is represented here
in
on
all the diagrams.
Yes.
Now east would be to the 90 degrees.
Would have been to the right of.
In a clockwise direction.
Yes, yes.
Right. But they say sailing east, we go 8 kilometers. So we could just quickly browse through to see which of those are going 8. So we can eliminate A.
Because that says 6 kilometers. Okay, good.
No, the next information that we need to look at is it sailed 6 kilometers due north to sea.
Yes, yes, due north to sea. Looking at it, due north to sea, it means that we'll go up north, and here represented 6 kilometers. D has 6 kilometers south,
And this ship just stopped at
right
B.
there. So just looking at it, we see that C is our solution. Is our solution. It is time for our second break, but don't go far because we still have a few more tips for you. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to class time. We've been giving you geometry and trigonometry multiple choice exam tips, and we have just a few more to go.
So we are back at our multiple choice questions, and we are at question 13. Here we have a diagram. We are given the diagram, and it says AB is parallel to EC. Calculate the angle BDE. Yes. So we have the information and the representation there. Highlighted for you, we see that angle B is 40 degrees. The information we had is that we have parallel lines.
Yes.
Yes.
So what we need to do is to identify the pair of parallel lines,
Okay,
and we see
AB,
that AB and EC.
Yes.
Those two lines are parallel, right? And then observing the diagram carefully, you will notice that it is intersected by a transversal BD, forming the angle 40 degrees right there.
Yes,
and
yes.
it goes back to our angle property, right? So you examine the properties. Are these co-interior angles? Are they vertically opposite angle? Based on the angle that we are required to find, angle BDE.
So it's BDE. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. You know,
So-
that one almost got me because I was looking in another direction.
Me
we
too.
have to pay attention.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Careful,
Yes.
read the
Yes,
question
thanks.
carefully. Right.
And
so
pay attention to the diagram. Go ahead.
So, are these angles at a point? Are they vertically opposite? Are they corresponding angles? And we are asked to find angle BDE, which would be this angle right here. And those two are co-interior angles.
Meaning?
They are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180 degrees. And if we know that one angle is already 40 degrees, then we can just carry out a
Simple
subtraction.
subtraction, yes.
And our answer
would have been, okay, would have been 140 degrees. And of course, this is one of the questions that would not take us much time.
Less than a minute.
Okay, good. And so we come back to question 14.
Right. So on the multiple choice, if you notice, a lot of work is being done with the right angle triangle in relation to trig ratios, trigonometrical ratios, right? So in this case, they say, give us the diagram and the value of tan 180
subtracting x is equal to, wow.
All right. So we are only given x on the diagram.
But we also know,
but they are telling us that we need to find the tan of the angle 180 subtracting x. Where does that angle fit?
it would fit all at B.
It will be at angle ABC. Reason?
Angle ABC, because at angle B, that would be on a straight line. That would be 180 degrees.
Right. So we have two angles right there.
Yes.
And we know that one is x.
Yes.
They did not tell us 40 degrees, 90
That's
degrees,
right,
30 degrees.
right.
It's x degrees.
Yes.
Right. So we know that 180 subtracting, subtracting x degrees would be the value of the angle at ABC.
Good, good, good. Based on the information, we know that that is the angle of focus. We can speak about, say the same trig ratio. If we know that that is the angle of focus, then what would be represented at BC? What would be at AC? What would be at AB?
Right.
As it relates to the angle of focus. Good. Yes.
No. The right angle is right there. It means therefore that at BC is the hypotenuse being formed right here.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we have the hypotenuse. We have, that would be what? Adjacent, the angle of focus. And of course, we have the angle that is opposite. So tan.
Opposite.
Tan would be opposite over
divided by
the
adjacent,
which would of course it would be B
opposite divided by the adjacent.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come a long way this morning, and we have looked at the trigonometry and we have looked at geometry. We have come to the end of the session,
and you can watch a repeat of this lesson on JNN at 5 p.m. And for the other lesson, you can access One Spot Media video on demand.
Class time continues tomorrow with English language. If you are away from your TV, you may watch the lesson in real time on Television Jamaica's YouTube channel or One Spot Media. So it's bye for now.
Remember to keep washing your hands,
wear your mask,
sanitize,
and keep your distance.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much for watching.